Hi, it's Grace from the CSC, and we're here for another episode of Hashtag Finance. We're here in Toronto, Ontario, on top of the BMO Tower. I'm here with a well-known guest, Mr. Frank Holmes, Chairman and Chief Investment Officer at U.S. Global Investors. Frank, you're looking good today.
Thank you. Very kind.
So you are originally from Texas?
No. I'm a Texan.
Oh, okay.
Y'all come back. I moved down 30 years ago from cold Toronto to hot San Antonio.
Great. And so what part of Toronto were you from?
I'm a Cabbagetown kid. I went to Jarvis Collegiate, I think the oldest high school in Canada. And from there, I graduated from Western University at Huron College, and then went as a research analyst. And then I was in corporate finance and banking. And I first mining company I ever took public was called Franco-Nevada.
Oh, wow. It had your name in it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But it's Pierre Lassonde and Seymour Schulich, and it's the largest gold royalty company in the world.
Okay.
So my mentors were people like Pierre Lassonde and Seymour Schulich, who's well known for the university.
Great. And before we start talking about gold, because I know you are the expert in gold, I heard that you used to wrestle.
Wrestle? I was a boxer.
Okay, boxing. Sorry.
Yeah, Golden Gloves boxer. And I still train with the world champion Jesse James Leha. And I just celebrated his birthday a couple of weeks ago at 53, he is. But he fought the 140-pound weight, and nothing is tougher than doing all those sit-ups and jabbing at a bag and going in a ring and hitting with him.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's good. That's good that you're keeping up with the boxing. Any matches that you're doing?
No. Just try to keep up the running. I've slowed down from running marathons. I've done about 18 of them.
Wow.
And
what's your best time?
Finish.
Okay. Your best
as long as
three.
you finish.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the most important thing when you run a marathon, you finish. And I started at the age of 40. And so now tomorrow's Sunday morning, so I'll probably do 15 kilometers.
Excellent.
So keep the blood flowing.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about gold, since you are the expert. What's going on with gold? Teach me.
Not really an expert. I just am steeped in Canadian history. In Canada, when I was in school here in grade 9, you had to learn about the Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian seas. I thought these were all Armenians, but no, these are actually sedimentary rocks, and that's why you get to Niagara Falls that one sedimentary rock is weaker than the other. You learn all this stuff in grade 9, and you go up to the escarpment, you understand kettles and drums and gravel and etc. So it became very easy getting into the capital markets of gravitating towards gold mining and taking economics, understand the significance of gold as an asset class, and then gold mining. It was layup. And plus I was going for medical school, so I switched to that, and all those sciences have been very, very helpful in appreciating mining, investing, etc.
So did you have gold boxing gloves at one point in your life?
Just a gold trophy.
Okay, that's fair. So you're in Toronto for how long?
I'm here until Wednesday next week.
Okay.
I have a small investment company up here called Galileo. So I'm up here and seeing some institutions that have investments in Hive. I'm also the chairman and co-founder of Hive Blockchain. So that's what I'm busy doing.
Okay, and tell us a little bit more about Hive Blockchain.
I was trying to launch an ETF. I launched one in the airlines, a New York Stock Exchange called Jets. Makes it really easy.
Actually, I still have when I used to work at Small Cap Power, you shipped us a suitcase.
Yes.
And I literally just brought it with me to Chicago. I still use it. Yeah.
When you travel.
Yeah, it's white. It's amazing.
And there's the jet on it, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So with that, then I went to launch GoAU, Go Gold, as a quant base, which I learned a lot from Jets. And I spent about 8,000 hours and got that going. And we celebrated this last week in New York. It's 2 years, and it's done exactly what it said it would do. It's outperformed the GDXJ 90% of the time in rolling 12-month periods. What it suggested would do. It's outperformed for 2 years by 16%. It's outperformed by 10% year to date. So I'm very proud of that sort of quant approach towards looking at it. And 30% of that particular ETF are royalty companies. So now I'm trying to launch ETF in Bitcoin.
Wow.
And I quickly realized after the $1,000 an hour legal bill that the SEC was not going to let one go through because the great concern, and rightfully so, of anti-money laundering laws. And I was catching all this knowledge, gathering more and more understanding of that crypto space. And I came up to Canada and went with they call the launch platform here at Launchpad for the OSC, and quickly also discovered that nothing's going to happen here either. They're great concerns. And but I had this knowledge, and friends of mine called me, and Frank Schuster said, my young guys have this deal, and would you be interested in taking a look as an investor? So I said, yeah, this is a real trend. So I put up $5 million, became the chairman, and immediately it was a fortune, just luck. It became a raving success. Crypto went through the roof. We raised $200 million, and we became the first industrial scale mining Ethereum. And then we went into Bitcoin mining in Iceland and Sweden.
I saw that.
And in the cloud. So what happened was that all these other companies came ushering behind that, following the Hive model. And since then, we basically go up and down with the Bitcoin price. So it's a 90% correlation, same volatility. It's extremely volatile because Bitcoin itself and Ethereum are volatile. And it's become a proxy.
Why are they volatile?
Because they're emergent. When something's new and you have early adopters, the spreads are usually wider. It doesn't matter if it's art, as it becomes more mature. But what's really important for Hive was that a lot of people were afraid to open an account after hearing about Mt. Gox or Kraken getting hacked, and it was a reluctance to go to these exchanges, but they wanted to participate in the space. So Hive became a proxy. So if you want to own a Bitcoin you think is going to keep running, then you bought Hive. And if you think it's going to be going down, sell it or you short it. And that's what we've seen. So we trade 2 million shares a day. And that's what's interesting enough, it's become a proxy.
And how do you think people are going to gain trust in this kind of currency? Or if this I think I heard in your interview, you called it there's a lot of funny money around.
Well, that's a great question because most of narco trading is U.S. dollars. In Europe, it's euro, so it's not Bitcoin. Hackers use it to try to get money because the hackers are coming from North Korea or Russia and other places where the hackers come from, and that's the only way they can move their money around. But really, I think that the big audience that's come into that space are speculators. And I think it really hurt the junior mining and technology space. The millennials don't want to go and trade stocks because the market's actually short. They want to trade Friday night. There's nothing happening Friday night in Toronto. Well, I'll trade crypto. I'll arbitrage between South Korea and Japan and something in Dubai. That's the thought process. So we saw $5 billion in 2017 go into all these new cryptos. And I think when you talk to millennials, to see even to this day, they have conferences that are $2,000 a ticket. They're packed. So there's something happening globally. And when I discovered if there was 10,000 nodes, that is people that are involved in the transactions of verifying a Bitcoin transaction around the world. There's 30,000 coders that work for Ethereum free around the world. It's unprecedented. You don't have that for the gold industry. You don't have it for small cap stocks. You don't have it for bonds. You don't have it. It's this sort of alternative asset class. And the thing that scared me at the beginning was trust. And what I found from people at your age, your friends, etc., that element of trust is so different. I remember my godson showing me Tinder and said, "What do you think, Uncle Frank? Yes, no, yes, no." And I said, "Well, how do you trust? I would never trust that is her and she looks like that and etc. I just wouldn't do it." And he said, "Oh, Uncle Frank, how long did it take you to trust Uber?" I said, "It took me a while." Airbnb, it took me a while. So my age has a longer life cycle of trusting. And that's one reason why my age, a lot of people are older, trust gold, because they know gold's always been either jewelry or it's been a monetary asset class. So it's recognizing this element of trusting that, not paper money. Last thing you want to do is own paper money from Venezuela. You've lost 99% of your money. But those that own gold and silver in that country have some form of liquidity to protect it. That's where we come from. But what I found was that the element of trust in the new millennials and younger than that, they've been playing, in particular boys, something like what I discovered was digital gaming, like mobile gaming. Mm-hmm. Mobile gaming is predominantly young boys to 25 years old. They spend more money than all movies and all music combined.
Wow.
Every year.
That's interesting.
So Machine Zone comes along, and all of a sudden, they do $6 billion in revenue. So there's a shift. Now, when you play some of those video games or those digital games, guess what you win if you're good?
What?
A digital money in that game's currency.
Interesting.
So all these kids are used to digital money, and they can upgrade and buy a better game with this digital money. So along comes Ethereum and Bitcoin. No, they're used to digital money. My age and my friends, they're not used to digital money. So there is that sort of sea change taking place. And what Bitcoin validated is that you can do a transaction every 10 minutes. So that basically changes the back office. There's no failed deliveries in stocks. You can't legally short. It's an open ledger. People can, it's transparent that way. So this is a big game changer. And the other one is remittance. How many Filipino workers here are sending money back every month to the Philippines? And same with Mexico. The remittance payments is the largest source of foreign currency into the Philippines.
Interesting. I did not know that.
So then the cost for them to, if there's an earthquake in Mexico City, that worker has to leave their work, go and send money. Well, the Bitcoin model allows them to do it wallet to wallet. Not be charged $75, not have to leave work.
Right, there's no interest on it.
So there's lots of use of that. And when it comes to digital money, my biggest experience of that was Africa, going to visit gold mines in Africa 15 years ago and seeing people transfer money between their telephones. They buy everything from their phone, so they're not a bank account. So this idea, this concept of what I saw with phones, I saw with millennials, I said something big is happening. And there's no doubt it is significant. And last year, when Bitcoin fell from 19,000 down to 3,000, guess what that time period was? The launching of the futures market, and right to the day that Jimmy Dimon launched his Bitcoin, or stable coin it's called, but it's a knockoff. And that stable coin's backed by US dollars, and all of a sudden you saw the adoption process. Well, during that whole period of this cryptos falling, and regulatory assaults around the world going after bad guys, which I'm a big believer they have to do, you saw wallets, that is, people opening accounts, expanding. I saw this as a mutual fund manager in 2005 and 6 when gold markets corrected. Actually, we had positive money flows. We had more accounts being open. So the next run up in gold was even greater.
Right.
And the other part with this correction is predominantly a cash economy. It's not leveraged. So when you have a debt crisis like 2008 or in 97 in Asia, it takes 4 years to resolve that. Here is a force down by regulatory pushing down these coins and going after bad guys, which is good, and then it starts to come back. Now we have Libra. So Libra comes out and it's got a big backlash, but it's very profound, and it threatens all these governments around the world because all of a sudden you could have 2 billion people. Active users, 1.6 billion people would be using, they could have access to using a stable coin backed, say, by the US dollar, that you could be doing transactions and doing remittance. So a Filipino worker here, and there's an earthquake or typhoon over in Luzon, they can merely send money between that.
I see.
Not going through the bank. Guess what? They're worried about bad guys, but all of a sudden this really impacts the infrastructure of governments. And if you have, so now you see Iran's going to come out with their coin backed by gold. Well, that's great for their citizens because there's been hyperinflation there. There's been destruction of their paper money. And if they had a digital coin backed by gold, that's not really a threat to the US dollar, but it's great for Iranians.
Yeah, that's true. And I saw as well in one of your articles that you were talking about how the U.S., how there's banks closing and how a lot of people don't even know how to bank. And so how do you expect people who don't even know how to bank be able to comprehend something like Bitcoin or Libra or...
Well, it would go through an exponential leap if all of a sudden Libra comes along with Facebook.
Right.
I mean, that would be, a game changer, and you could get a MasterCard with this stable coin and be able to go from you and I B2B and send money. not get charged with $75 wire transfer.
Right.
And not have to wait. Oh, the bank is holding our money for 3 days because you send it after 11 o'clock on a Friday, and it might get to the other country by Tuesday. No, this is instantaneous. So I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to morph. And I'd like to remind people that when the internet was out, do you remember Ask Jeeves?
No.
You don't?
No.
So you're such a baby. You're so young. Ask Jeeves is where we all went to get what Google gives you today. And then Yahoo surpassed Ask Jeeves. And you can go look at it. But then now Google destroyed all of them. And interesting, what's kept Yahoo alive has been Yahoo Finance, because they have 20 million users, and Apple iPhones, etc., all use Yahoo for press releases.
And I want to hear more about that, but we're going to be right back after a quick break from our sponsor.
Broadcasting from the heart of Toronto's financial district at the top of First Canadian Place, CSE TV is your trusted source for what's happening in capital markets. Our #Finance podcast series gets you exclusive long-form interview content with visionary entrepreneurs and CEOs of companies in the news. The CSE's On the Street segments get you up close and personal with many of our listed companies. And don't forget that you can find the video version of this and all our media on our CSE TV channel on YouTube. For instant notifications, subscribe to CSE TV now.
And we're back with Frank Holmes. Frank, I just want to know a little bit more, because I am a baby. I just want to know a little bit more about what's going on in the economy right now.
Well, it's important when you look at the economy, macro forces. And there are macro forces, and what I write about every week is try to identify what two countries have a significant power of trade or some element. So let's talk about Chindia, affectionately known as China and India. They are 40% of the world's population. I'm going to repeat, 40%. The Indian women wear 6 times the amount of gold that's in Fort Knox. It's protecting from all bad currencies. So that love trade, they buy gold for love. It's also something you can pass on to family. The Chinese are also culturally very consumed with gold. So you find out that 60% of all gold buying is for love. And who are the two biggest countries? So you can take these two countries and say, this is important. What would improve their buying of more gold? GDP per capita. The rising GDP per capita allows them to buy more grams of gold. That's really important. And you've seen this. So now we talk about trade wars. And I love President Clinton when he said years ago, follow the trend line, not the headline. And what is the trend line? Well, when we look at China and we look at the U.S., it's 40% of global trade. Wow. So if I follow those two countries, I know about manufactured products going back and forth. If I follow China and India, I know about consumption.
And I just want to back up there. Did Canada ruin their relationship with China, do you think?
No, it's all temporary. I think it's all temporary. Justin will be gone and it'll be repaired.
Okay, so now I know your opinion on that. That was my next question.
I think that,
But Justin's good looking though, so we've got that.
Yeah, but that's form over substance.
Yeah.
And that's called fraud.
Yeah.
Where you're really buying something for the form, or you want substance of a person with values, and that's a complete different thought process. I think he's been well groomed. He's much more articulate than when I first met him, when he spoke to a group of CEOs in Quebec City. He's groomed, but he doesn't really understand macroeconomics very well.
Okay, so let's go back to the macroeconomics.
So these macroeconomics are very significant, and when we look at trade, we look at what's called PMI.
And what's PMI?
PMI is forward-looking, and it allows you to project things for commodity demand 6 months out. And PMI is called the Purchasing Manufacturers Index. And Purchasing Manufacturers Index each country has theirs, and you can aggregate them to the global PMI. And the global PMI, if the 1 month is above the 3 months, copper is going up, oil is going up in 6 months. So if it stays above for 3 months in a row, it's an 80% probability they're trading higher. If it goes below, there's 80% it's going lower. Now, we can turn around and look at China and India. What do they import? So oil is highly correlated to China. They're the biggest oil importers. So you can see, I'm going to make electric motors. Well, I'm going to need copper. So copper prices got to go up. I'm going to use electricity, and I'm going to use oil. So therefore, oil is going to be imported, and this gets the global PMIs going. Well, global PMIs peaked this time last year. Why? Trade wars. Trade wars. Who are the trade wars between? 40% of the world's GDP of trade. Very significant. Markets start to unravel. But the U.S. has dropped corporate tax rates. The U.S. has stifled any new regulations coming on. That's one thing that Trump has been great. Doesn't make the headlines, but it's basically, he says, drain the swamp and all that he says. But besides all the other exaggerated facts he gives out, he has stopped this sort of growth of bureaucracy. Versus the EU continues to grow in its bureaucracy. So we're seeing this as switch. So his economy is now growing, and he's been able to mute this trade war. The PMI is now turning negative, very serious, because now the world's going to negative real interest rates. The U.S. is the only place that's not. Next week is Fed week. Rates are going to drop. We're going to negative real interest rates. That's why gold's been running. That's why silver's been taking off. And that's why you're getting bids in the commodities. So it's really important to see how real interest rates impact, that is, what will the government pay you minus the CPI number. The rest of the world is negative. Why would you buy government paper? You're going to lose money. Buy U.S., you're going to make money. Now the U.S. is going to join the camp and go negative. That's going to weaken the dollar, but that's going to have a positive impact on global growth. So what does this mean for the stock market? Very important. The stock market's like PMI. It's a forecast of growth.
Okay.
Confidence today is forecasting, always 2 quarters out, has a high probability of looking at back data that projects. Whenever you have an expanding American economy like we have today, and they drop interest rates, there's a 100% probability of the market going up over the next 6 months.
Okay.
But the headline says, no, this guy's bad, or negative.
You can never listen to news.
You got to
It
say,
just scares
follow
you.
the trend line, follow the money flows, stay long, buy on the dips. So that's the thing I try to tell people, is just use the quant, like card counting at casinos. You can do that with macroeconomics.
And just for the babies like myself and the millennials who may not understand these terms, unless you're taking finance, but do want to invest their money, what would you suggest for them to turn to as a resource?
Investopedia, you can sign up and they give you a new word every day. And anything you want, any macro to stock picking, whatever, they're rich with content. So I think that's a great way. When we hire a new employee onboarding, they sign up for Investopedia to start going through that. And then there's some great movies to watch, like The Ascent of Money. That's just by Niall Ferguson, a professor from Harvard and Stanford, a Scotsman. It's fantastic. It really tells you about how money and bond markets grew, and it's entertaining. It's not boring.
Wolf on Wall Street, is that one that we could?
No, because that's just, what's interesting is that's just the ugly part of it.
Yeah.
That's like saying Ferrari cars are beautiful to look at, but we're just going to look at dirty fingernails of the mechanic. Right? And his calendar that he has up on the wall is not politically correct. We're going to focus on that. Wrong. It's a beautiful car. So we have to focus on the formation of capital to create jobs, the formation of capital that allows speculation that things will not work out, and they will. That's really important. And I think that's where we should, following these trend lines, is more important.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And I know that we're taking
I got to share with you. There's a new movie. Was a Netflix out, and it's Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. When you watch that documentary, and you compare it today, unbelievable. In the 60s, Martin Luther King gets killed, he gets killed, his brother gets killed, there's wars all over the place, the majority of the people in the world are poor. It's a 180 from that. There's hardly any, Detroit got burnt down, Memphis got burnt down, New York City riots, San Francisco burnt down. It's peace, actually. It's very peaceful compared to how bad it was then. And so that's why follow the trend line, not the headline.
Nice. I like that slogan. So I know you're a busy guy, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming in today. We are honored to have you in as a guest. But one last thing before you go, where can our listeners get to know you more? Do you have any social handles?
Well, at U.S. Funds, we publish every Friday, and we do a SWOT analysis, and it's always comprehensive but succinct on global markets and gold and interest rates. And we have about 50,000 global readers in 180 countries. So it's free. So you go to usfunds.com, like U.S. money, but it's USFUNDS.com, and you get the investor alert, and you get the Frank Talk blog, which is more personal of my travels, meeting CEOs of companies and my experiences.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, it's Grace from the CSC reminding you to make sure to follow us on social media for the latest updates on our listed companies as well as new listing alerts. For more in-depth content, be sure to pick up our free quarterly magazine, Public Entrepreneur, available online at thecsc.com.